Unit 1, topics 4, 5, and 6, biological macromolecules. We're going to talk about the properties, the structures, and functions. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates include all sugars and polymers of sugars. Carbohydrates can be identified because they contain a carboxyl group, and many of them also have these hydroxyl groups. They're all comprised of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So monosaccharides, those are simple sugars. They all have a molecular formula structure that's in multipliers of C1H2O1. So they're all going to be multiples of the same chemical formula, CH2O. The most common of these is glucose. And our body's cells, we use carbohydrates as fuel. We definitely burn them in cellular respiration, so do plant cells, and they can serve as a building block for other amino acids, or as the monomers for either di or polysaccharides. We have some terminology here for carbohydrates. Disaccharides. And that's anything that is referred to two monosaccharides that are joined together. The most common of these you've already seen is sucrose. There can be lots of monomers of sucrose, like glucose and fructose. Plants transfer carbohydrates from their roots to their leaves in the form of sucrose. Polysaccharide is a general term that refers to any polymer that's got lots of sugars that are joined together, and they're joined based on those dehydration reactions that we've talked about. Now, when we're talking about storing these large polysaccharides, plants store them as starch, and animals store them as glycogen. So starch is a polymer of glucose, and glycogen is also a polymer of glucose. But the starch allows plants to store all of its excess sugar, its excess glucose, its excess product from photosynthesis, while glycogen is often stored in the liver and muscle cells. These structural polysaccharides are used to make things, form these complex structures, very strong structures. Two of the best examples are cellulose and chitin. Cellulose is that really tough substance that forms the cell walls in plants and plant cells in particular. And then chitin is what the exoskeletons of arthropods, insects, is made of. So it's kind of tough to think about it that the exoskeleton, if you will, of any arthropod is actually a polysaccharide. It's also important to mention that chitin is also in the cell walls of fungus. So if you're asked to write a formula for a carbohydrate, let's just say monosaccharide, and you need to identify it. The only clue is that you're given it has 4 carbons. How can you figure out the formula of that unknown monosaccharide? And if they all follow this CH2O pattern, and it's going to have 4 carbons, then you're multiplying all the subscripts by 4, making it C4H8O4. Now, we're not in the business of naming all of these vast variety of monosaccharides and hydrocarbons. You'd have to look that up. And if you Google it, you're probably going to come up with tertrose because of the 4 carbons. But I just happen to know this one. It's erythrose because that is in the cartilage of humans.